Welcome to Knowledge and Proclamation. Thank you for joining us again. I am so appreciative to everyone who checks in and watches these videos. I hope that you enjoy each and every lesson. This week, our lesson is going to continue in the series of Jesus's I Am teaching. And this week, we're going to go over Jesus's I Am the resurrection and the life teaching. Now, if you remember how we began this series, we talked about God and how He is the beginning of all being and the beginning of all life. We said that every being, human being, is contingent upon a previous being. That is to say, you come from your parents come from your grandparents, and we traced that line of existence back, and we said that all life, all existence, all being must come from a being who is the source of all existence, who has existence within himself, who has life within himself, and we explained that that being is God. And what better way for God to reveal himself than in the statement, I am, I exist. And this is how God revealed himself to the Old Testament writers in the covenant name of Yahweh. He is saying, I am, I exist. We fast forwarded to the time of Jesus, and we noticed that Jesus uses this terminology in reference to himself. Jesus is literally showing himself to be the I am of the Old Testament. Now, we know that this was an extraordinary claim because we look at the way people react around him. They wanted to kill him, they wanted to stone him, or others who actually believe, they respond with great faith. They say that, yes, I know that you are the Son of God. And so we see that Jesus is claiming to be deity in human flesh, and depending on how you receive that, you see these extraordinary reactions from the people around him. And so Jesus is showing himself to be the I am, the great I am that was revealed to the Old Testament writers. He is saying that he is God in the flesh. As we've journeyed through each of these I am teachings, we're able to learn something about God and learn something about the way that he relates to us as human beings, to us as believers, to creation. There's been different themes in each one of the teaching. And today's teaching is no different. We're going to see themes of belief, themes of assurance again for every believer. And a new theme, I think, in this one is that we're going to see hints of not only Jesus' resurrection, but the resurrection of every believer. Okay, let's go into the teaching. Jesus' I am resurrection teaching comes at a moment when he is going to raise Lazarus from the dead. The scene starts in John chapter 11, verse 1. I am going to be coming from John chapter 11, verses 17 through 27. But I encourage you to read the whole chapter, actually, because the whole chapter captures the interaction of Jesus and his disciples, then Jesus, Mary, Martha, and eventually Lazarus, and then it captures the reaction of the Jews around Jesus after Lazarus has been raised from the dead. So I encourage you to read all of John chapter 11. We're going to focus on verses 17 through 27. While Jesus is out teaching in the area of Perea, someone comes to him, messengers are sent to him by Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus, to explain to Jesus that as they say, the one he loves is sick. This points to Jesus having a close relationship to Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, and so much so that simply by saying the one you love, Jesus knows exactly who they're talking about, and they let him know that he is sick. Lazarus is sick unto death. One thing that we often point out is that after Jesus receives this message, he continues teaching in Perea for 2 more days. And so we see that although Jesus is concerned, he does finish what he has to do in Perea, and he lets his disciples know that Lazarus being sick is going to be able to show forth the glory of God. So it seems that Jesus, in his divine knowledge, he has a plan, and although maybe those around him are considering, well, if his good friend is sick, why does he wait 2 days before he makes the journey back into the town of Bethany? One thing to point out, though, is that when he gets to Bethany, the writer of the Gospel of John points out that Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. So what the messengers didn't know, considering the day, maybe day and a half it takes them to journey and find Jesus, and then for Jesus to journey back, Lazarus would have been dead already. So probably Lazarus, being very sick, died right after Mary and Martha had sent messengers to Jesus. So it's not his waiting that might have allowed Lazarus to die. Lazarus was dead shortly after the messengers were sent. And Jesus, in waiting, really, he is again going to show forth the glory of God, because when Lazarus is raised, he is 4 days dead. And so let's continue into the scripture and see what we can pull from it as we learn from Jesus's I am teaching. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, and Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live." Martha, yet shall he live. "And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." So in this passage, we see that many people make the journey down to the town of Mary and Martha to actually grieve and mourn with the family. This could point to the family being well known in the area. Actual grievers have journeyed from Jerusalem down to Bethany, about 2 miles, to sit with the family for a few days, grieve with the family over their loss. So the family could have been well known enough so that people are willing to make the trip. It's also a part of Jewish custom to grieve with a loved one, grieve with a family that has had a terrible loss. And so we see that's what's happening here with Mary and Martha. Now, throughout all of the commotion, while people are grieving, Sort of like any other funeral, you have a lot of people there, a lot of moving parts. Martha got word that Jesus was approaching. Jesus was on his way to meet them. Martha leaves the gathering, leaves her sister there, and goes out to meet Jesus. You see this in Martha, how she really, really cares for Jesus. And you see this in other gospels. It kind of coincides with it when she uses the oils to anoint Jesus' feet and wash his feet with her hair. So she really, really cares about Jesus. It shows how close Jesus was to her and her family. So Martha meets Jesus with an expression of faith. She says, "Lord, if you were here, my brother would not have died." She recognizes, having witnessed many of the powerful miracles of Jesus, she knows that the sickness that Lazarus had was not something that Jesus could not handle. Jesus could have healed her brother from the sickness. And then she has an even more powerful statement of faith that she says, "Even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, he will give it to you." Now, we see Jesus in his time when he's meeting with people, encountering people, this type of faith will cause Jesus to act. He lets people know that if they would believe that these things will be given to them. But as we see in the following verses, in these verses also, there's something lacking from her faith. The belief she has in Jesus has not yet transcended her cultural, religious belief system. She has a certain type of limits on her belief in Jesus. What are those limits? First, what you see that she says is that if you were here, my brother would not have died. There it shows that she believes that death is something that not even Jesus can change. She believes that if her brother was still alive when Jesus showed up, then Jesus could have healed him. Now that her brother is dead, she expresses sort of a despair that now Lazarus has gone into a place where Jesus cannot reach him. Well, then you say, but she has an even larger statement of faith later where she says that even now, whatever Jesus asks from God, God will give it to him. But as we see in the next few verses, her faith is still lacking. Why? Because we look at the inner change that she has with Jesus. After she says that even now, whatever Jesus asks from God, God will give it to him. Jesus says to her, "Your brother will rise again." She responds, Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Again, her cultural, religious understanding of the resurrection is that on the last day, all the faithful Jews will be raised back to life. So here it is. Jesus is clearly talking about raising her brother immediately, right now. And she cannot see the power of Jesus transcending her historical, cultural, and religious beliefs. She thinks Jesus is trying to comfort her, knowing that her brother was a faithful Jew and that one day he would be resurrected at the end of time. Jesus is saying the resurrection is here now. And so Jesus goes on to ask her a very important question. He says that I am. He goes into his I am teaching. He says that I am, ego eimi. Remember, this is a special use of the word I am. He says that I am the resurrection and the life. He says that if anyone believes in me, though they die, yet will they live. And if anyone believes in me and lives, they will never die. And then he asks her, do you believe this? This is important because he is trying to get her to see who he actually is. He is divinity in the flesh, the one who actually has power over life and death. And so you see the statement of faith in response to what Jesus is saying to her. And she says, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ. I believe that you are the Son of God who is coming into the world. Remember, around these teachings, everyone has a reaction. Many of the people say, this man is comparing himself to God. It is blasphemy. Let us stone him. Let us kill him. Many of the people seek to kill him for these type of statements. But those who see him for who he is respond in great faith. Martha here says, yes, I believe you are the Christ. You see in another moment, Peter, Jesus asks him, who do men say that I am? And they go through the list. Is it Isaiah? Is the prophet? But who do you say that I am? He looks at Peter. Peter says, you are the Christ, the anointed one, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus responds to him and says that flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, Peter, but his Father who is in heaven. So what we see is when Jesus makes these statements, people either respond in a way where they can't believe it. God in the flesh has not come to live with us. This man is just another man from Galilee, from Bethlehem, and there is nothing special about him. But to others, they see him and they confess him to be the Christ, to be the Son of God. So Jesus asked her, do you believe this? She confessed that she believes. It's important. Martha has a problem. Her brother is dead. And with belief, she can see Jesus as the answer to that problem. One of the biggest problems, even life and death. But it is the same for us today. No matter what problem it is, Jesus is asking us, do we believe that he is the answer to that problem? Whatever it might be, when we look at him, do we see God in the flesh, this omnipotent divinity wrapped in flesh, come on our behalf? Do you believe this? It matters what you believe about Christ. Well, we know how this ends, right? Jesus is moved with compassion for Mary and Martha. He is agitated. He shows great emotion at the effect death has on his friend. And these are the verses where the Bible records that Jesus weeps, he cries. The type of crying that Jesus is doing is a gut-wrenching cry. He is weeping and he is emotionally torn for his friends, Mary and Martha, and at the effect death has had on his friend Lazarus. And Jesus moves in this moment and he calls Lazarus by name from the tomb. Lazarus is raised back to his family, and many people believe in Jesus because of this miracle. He has shown himself to be the one with power over even life and death. And that is what Jesus is pointing to. But that question he asked Martha is still poignant for us today. Is, do we believe this? A man like Jesus and the claims he is making here forces all of us to answer this question. Do we believe this? What do we think? What are we to make of this man, Jesus Christ? C.S. Lewis pointed out one day that you can't call Jesus just a moral teacher based on these kind of claims. With these kind of claims, claiming to be God, raising people from the dead, that others should believe in him so that they might have eternal life. These are outlandish claims. And so there's only three options for anyone when they consider the man Jesus. He's a lunatic. He's crazy. He's a liar. He knows he isn't God, but he's saying these things. Or he is Lord. He is actually God in the flesh. So do you believe this? Is it lunatic, liar, or is Jesus the Lord of life? Thank you for watching Knowledge and Proclamation again. I appreciate everyone who takes time to watch these videos. I hope they are helpful to you. Please subscribe to our channel, Knowledge and Proclamation on YouTube. Follow our blog, knowledgeandproclamation.com, and search us out on Facebook, Knowledge and Proclamation. Give us a like and a follow. We really appreciate it. Again, thank you.